have given you fun, fearless and factual content.
I love it.
As we unveil a new bouquet of shows, amazing events, and incredible giveaways. Stay tuned over the next couple weeks as we turn things up. Scan your DVB-T2 compatible TV or multi-TV decoder to MX24. Or stay up to date with us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. MX at 1.3. Let them.
Why should I waste my time joining a long queue under the hot sun to vote for a political party, knowing very well that nothing would be achieved at the end of the day?
Something will be achieved. It's your civic responsibility to turn out to vote.
Governments need to cater to every graduate, diversify the economy, invest in other sectors.
But the government cannot do it all. That is why we need the youth to take up the mantle and set up their own businesses. That is how we will create economic viability.
We take your views, that of the experts, and even attempts to find common ground. Join me, Marie-France Fojo, every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Opposing Views. Now, today we have a very interesting discussion that will divide opinion. I don't expect anything less. We will be talking about education and religion and whether or not we should consider eschewing it from our various schools from all levels. Do you think it's a distraction to academic work? I'm sure in the last 48 hours you've seen a lot of chatter on our various socials about how various religious activities are distracting students from sticking to their books. What's your take on it? We will be receiving your opinions. You can go onto all our various social media platforms at MX24 to join the conversation. I have a lineup of very important guests who will be joining this discourse, and we will attempt to answer that question whether we should consider abolishing religious practices from our schools. We'll be back after the break. Don't go away.
The African Makeup and Beauty Fair 2021, brought to you by Makeup Ghana in partnership with First Choice Hair and Beauty, happening on Wednesday the 17th and Thursday the 18th of November 2021 at the Dome Accra International Conference Center. Admission is free. Come and experience shopping, education, sales, demos, giveaways, competitions, mega discounts, and special performances, featuring brands you know and love and new brands you will surely fall in love with. Makeup, skincare, hair, nails, and more. Truly a Pan-African beauty festival.
You're welcome back. This is Opposing Views live on MX24. Now, our topic for discussion today is: should we consider abolishing religious activities from our various educational institutions? Now, before I introduce my guest, let me share with you some slides from the conversation that took place on various social media platforms in the last 48 hours. For each reason, we've been having this conversation. So we'll put that up on your screens so you can see some of the commentary that went on. So and this was the trigger for the conversation actually. At Miss Y. Rabi says, in KNUST we were more serious about religion than earning. Intellectual was greater than science fair. Pajo was the place, not the Huawei lab. Your culture and focus will determine your direction. Now we have finished school and can speak in tongues but cannot write business plans. The main aim of KNUST is education, not religion. You cannot come out of KNUST with Christ. There's nothing wrong with that. You must not come out without skills. If that happens, then the entire enterprise of KNUST is lost. Religion and education are diametrical in nature. At Patrick Asson says, this is deep, Charlie. Back in KNUST, this friend of mine came 2 years after me. Dude became all spiritual all of a sudden. Always seen doing evangelism, praying, and all them church stuffs. He couldn't even make it to second year because he trailed 5 courses that first year. At LA Flame GH says, I have always felt like for a science school like KNUST, religion is awfully too powerful here. I've spent some 8 years around the school, and boy, religion is such a force to be reckoned with over here. At Sparks Proxy says, about 90% of toppers and extremely brilliant people I've known are church people. It's all about finding the right balance. And at Freddie Drum says, anti-prayer warrior, the way you structured your tweet, it's some way be. Say that I was, because your choices have brought you this far, not the institution. So these are just a few of the comments that made it on social media platforms. Now, it also generated the conversations around whether we should even start looking from the basic level where you have to attend compulsory morning devotion at high schools where church service is compulsory. You have to partake in a series of religious activities. All that conversation come up, whether this is even necessary at all. I mean, you're going to school to seek skills and knowledge. Why bother with the religious part? Now, I will introduce my guests now, and then we'll pick their thoughts on whether this is something we should even bother discussing if we're going to miss a greater part of the children's formation. Should we decouple religion from education? So I have in studio with me Reverend Professor Joseph Osafo, who is a lecturer at the University of Ghana and also a Reverend Minister. Obviously, we also have Joseph Jamesi, the General Secretary of CHOPS. Sheikh Ayub Ofosuhene will join us via phone. He is an Islamic cleric. And Niyama Adi, who is an educationist, as well as Samson Kofi Adote, who is a grassroots education advocate. So, gentlemen, good evening, and many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Good evening, Marie.
Very well. I'll begin in studio with the Reverend. So, Reverend, thank you very much for joining us. Now,
thank you.
As a religious leader and an academic as well, you've heard some of the commentary that have ensued. How does this rub off on you in the first place?
Yeah, so this is nothing new.
Right.
If you do a bit of research in this area, you will come across what we call the double-edged role of religion.
Right.
And on one hand, if you don't manage it well, you will not get the best out of it. But on the other hand, religion is very powerful. And in fact, I'm going to just give you some statistics.
Right.
So let's look at the negative forces and the negative dimensions of religion. If you pick violence, for example, you would recall in history the Crusades. These were religious, they were driven by religious, zealotry and trying to just expand the frontiers of Christianity, and people were killing in the name of religion. An ongoing conflict between Jews and Muslims in the Middle East is religion.
Right.
Hindus and Muslims in India is religion. When you look at Catholics and Protestants in Ireland, it's religion. When you look at Christians and Muslims in former Yugoslavia, East Timor, Lebanon, Russia, and many other countries, for example, Boko Haram, and what you see in Nigeria. The killing of physicians, nurses, and Christian anti-abortion group in the US and other places, all of these are religion. But I like to just point out to you something else about what religion also does when you are looking at health, religion, for example, and health. And I'll give you a few statistics on this as well, just for you to, and our listeners to appreciate.
Very well.
So, I'm just checking recent statistics on the role of religion in health, for example. And I'm just doing some reviews. 78% of studies have reported a strong relationship between religion, spirituality, and well-being. 78%. That's about 80%.
Right.
73% of studies have indicated that religion affects and inspires or raises hope. And you see, if you come to the area where I work in the area of suicidality. That's one of my strongest points in research. And one of the things that we have found in suicidality is the generation of hope in people. When people are very much broken and they are worried and so forth, more than 3 times, the International Association for Suicide Prevention continues to indicate that generating hope in people who are going through challenges is the way to go. And tell me, which other human institution can generate hope more than religion? Not only that, 86% of studies have found a strong relationship between religion and optimism. So positive thinking can equally be inspired by religion. 82% of religion, of studies have also reported significant link between religion and social support. Now what that means is that if you met someone who was religious and you were in trouble and were looking for organizing some support for people who are in trouble, religious people are likely to come forward and say, I want to help. That's why we have seen in the literature that religion inspires voluntarism. People are likely to say, because the Bible says so, because the Quran says so, because of in Hindu religion, so they want to do that.
Let me come in. I get the point you're making about it inspiring voluntarism and optimism. But this is something that people can do outside of their studies. Now, the conversation is asking that, is it necessary to have it, to say it's a compulsory participation in our schools? Like we see in our high schools where you have to attend Mass, you have to attend Sunday service. Do we need to put students through that who are already being embedded with all sorts of things on campuses? Why not just allow them to stick to their books and then you can do whatever thing you do when you go home?
So that's why I place this discussion within that particular discussion. That religion on one hand can be problematic, on the other hand can be positive. So I wanted to just appreciate the negative dimension of religion and the positive side. And so back to the question. So again, within this remit of the discussion, people will say, oh, you know, when you are in school, concentrate on your books. Don't go to church, don't attend meetings, don't do this. Now, I completely differ. You see, there is what we call balancing and the law of moderation. Let me tell you something. You can be in school and be over-engaged in sports and fail your exams. You can be over-engaged in, for instance, various meetings. When I was in school, I will attend several meetings. We have seminars, you have sporting activities, you have times you go to, what do you call it, communities to go and do volunteerism work. You can't spend all your time on these things and leave your books unattended. I mean, so we should get it straight. The issue is not about the fact that students engage in religion. The issue is that they are over-involved. And they are not applying breaks to where they need to say, no, I need to attend to my books. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with religion. What is wrong is that people don't know how to manage their time. People don't know how to be moderate. People think that, well, the more tongues you speak, the better it is. That's not the case. So just balance your time. This is time for me to sit down 2 weeks for revision. Spend time and study. It's not a time for you to declare 2 weeks or 1 week of fasting. You're completely wrong.
Very well. Reverend, thank you very much for those initial remarks. Let me bring in Joseph James. He's the General Secretary for CHOPS. Now, Mr. James, the Reverend has made a very important point that it's neither here nor there. It's about finding the right balance and knowing what works for you. So if you think you are getting distracted by your religious activities, you need to take that decision. Now, in your work as an educator and as someone who is sitting on the conference of heads of private senior high schools, now, do you see a lot of students being distracted by such religious activities? And would you support a call for all these activities to be just taken out of our school system and just to let students go to school, do your work, and go home, and then when you go home, you can do whatever you want?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to all our listeners out there. I agree completely with the Reverend when he says religion is extremely important in the formative years of our children. I want to say in the private sector, usually you see religion very much involved in students' life, depending on whether the school is affiliated to a religious body or affiliated to a church, or if the proprietor is very religious himself or herself. For us, though, we believe that to have a well-balanced individual, that individual certainly must be academically knowledgeable, must be involved in other co-curricular activities like sports, and of course must have the love for God, because it's extremely important in developing a total individual, somebody who is spiritual, somebody who appreciates other things beyond academic, and of course, somebody who has the right balance to also focus on academics and do very well. Kids go to school to study. That is fundamental. That is number one. And I don't believe any school will push students to be involved in academic more than they are involved in academic, or to be involved in religion more than they are in academics. But in our world today, religion provides certain level of control for young people in their formative ages. It allows them to reach them with the word of God and to help them live their life by certain structure as they grow and begin to make decisions on their own. And I don't believe in any way that it has any effect on their ability to pass their WASI or their BEC. I believe, in fact, for most kids who go through these institutions where constantly the word of God is preached to them, the spiritual or Christian principles are used as a guide to help them make right decisions. I believe most of those kids, in fact, concentrate more on their academics and therefore, at the end of the day, do well in school than otherwise. So I agree with the Reverend completely.
Very well. Mr. James, on your score of whether on students doing better when they engage in such activities, we'll have to go and check and verify. But let me bring in Niyama Adi here. Niyama, I'm sure you followed the discussion so far. Now, Mr. Jamisi mentioned that religion provides some form of control and instills a level of discipline and some principles in students. Now, do we necessarily have to choose the religious routes to instill these things in children through their formative years? Can't we do that through courses on, say, discipline, empathy, self-control? Can't we achieve the same results without it being in the context of religion?
Yes, good evening and thank you for the opportunity.
Right.
I would like to limit my focus to Christianity because that's what I can espouse. That's what I can talk about. Okay?
That's fine.
And I would say, without missing words, if you ask me 1,000,000 times, I will still give the same answer that Christianity should be maintained in the schools to the extent that the founders of the school aspire to the Christian faith, to the extent that the parents aspire to Christianity, then they should make sure that they train up their children in that Christianity. I mean, we have different schools and different settings, okay? So you may find a school that would not project that. They will not project religion, as you call it, and make it very plain and focus in the studies, the business for which they've come to do. But in religious established schools, like missionary schools, I don't see why anybody should intend to say that the practices of Christianity should not be espoused in those schools. It is not for nothing that the founders or the missionaries set up those schools. And it should not be our place now to say that we should do away with the things, the ethos that the schools were built on. For example, if I'll take my child to a school, probably in a setting, if Christianity is not espoused there, I will not do it. So for me, I support it fully, and no amount of argument or literature or anything can dissuade me from the belief that when people pursue Christianity, they fail in their academics. And the examples that you cited with KNUST, it baffled me because at university level, I mean, they are mature enough to know whether they should spend their time in learning or spend their time in church. And therefore, if they are not able to make that distinction, then that is a problem. And in secondary school level, where other people have problems with, the chapel service is only Sunday evening. I mean, I went to the boarding house, I went to a parent school. We do chapel service every Sunday evening, which is less than 2 hours. Okay? So if one service Sunday evening to have other activities other than learning, we have entertainment Saturday evening. Nobody has anything against entertainment Saturday. Why should we have anything against church service on the Sunday? Okay, so I don't have any problem with it. And if I have my way, I would say that the missionary schools be returned to the missionaries, the missions, so that Christianity can be espoused more there. The faith-based schools, I mean, today all the religious associations, the religious faiths have schools. I mean, International Central Gospel School Church have schools all over.
Right.
Christ Embassy have schools. Lighthouse have schools. They espouse the Christianity and their belief in those schools. Nobody controls it. It is the schools that the government have taken, the missionary schools that the government have taken, that people try to want to control it. And for me, I'm not for that position. I think that it should be allowed. And of course, we have our free will to choose which schools we want to enroll our children in. If you enroll your child in a missionary-based school, and you think that why should a prayer be said? Why should certain group of people be given time to pursue their religious faith, whilst others are not given, etc.? I have a problem with it, because you have to go back to the foundation.
Nyama, I think we've lost Red. Okay.
Please let us stick to it. And I'm saying that my focus is very narrow, and very narrow on Christianity. Because I don't know what happens with the other religions, because I've not, if you like, I've studied it in the books, but I've not practiced it. So I don't know how it goes. But it will not be fair for us. It will not be fair for us if, assuming I've built a school, I've given so much money for a school to be built, and then tomorrow I'm dead and gone, they say that my faith or my belief as a Christianity has outlived its purpose. I'm no longer there. Therefore, my belief should not be allowed to be espoused in that school. I don't think I'll be very happy. And I don't think that is the way to go. Christianity has helped shape many more lives. Actually, it has shaped all lives of people who have come to it truthfully, not in any illusion. And those who have pursued the faith truthfully, Christianity has helped them in all ways. And I think that it should be allowed to go on. Thank you very much.
Right. Something. Now, you've heard what has been said so far. Now, one thing that I noticed in the commentary is that, so throughout our education, our upbringing, because a majority of Ghanaians will subscribe to the Christian faith. Now, people have said that these are the same people who grow up, these are the same people we see in high places that we would expect to know better and do better. But day in, day out, we hear stories and we see things that don't necessarily point to someone who is living by the tenets of Christianity. So are we missing something here, for which reason we need to relook at the practice or observance of religious activities in our educational institutions?
Thank you, Marie, for the opportunity. And I just want to say that I also went to a Presbyterian school for my basic education. And I think we need to establish a couple of things here. The first is the why of education, right? And when you take the why of education, which is, basically grooming young people to become active and morally sound individuals, or citizens, as you would put it. Now, there's also a difference between learning and education. And learning is nothing but a means to accomplish a goal, right? And it is dangerous to actually confuse the ends with the means. And so if you take, for instance, our school systems, and I, have been in the education sector for a little while. And one thing I see, even if you go to, missionary schools as an example, is the fact that someone went to a missionary school does not determine if the person will become a morally sound citizen, right? We've seen people we went to school with who came to school in the morning to say the prayer at morning assembly, listened to all the sermons in the world, attended all the prayer meetings, but are not morally sound citizens. You look at the morality, you can question it. So if you ask me, does religious activity affect learning? Maybe, maybe not. But we need to also establish that we are spiritual beings. And in the very formative years of a typical student, we need to really find a way to establish some form of balance and checks to enable and teach them, how to find balance themselves. And I think the process of finding balance also starts with leadership and also communicating the why of education to students. So if you let the students know that, look, you're going to school to become an active and morally sound citizen, and at this level of your education, you will be required to make decisions for yourself and determine what your future will be. It helps them to prepare them for that state. So you take, for instance, the people who, the tweet you shared on the screen was speaking about spending so much time praying and not attending classes. Now, it could be that these people, throughout their entire educational experience, spent a lot of time on praying and reading the Bible, and spent little time, perhaps by miracle, happening to find themselves in the university and didn't find the balance, or actually perhaps think prayers would answer the academic questions for them, right?
Right.
So if we establish that, one, we are preparing young people for the global skills economy, which is the future of work, and to become sound citizens, we need to co-create and maintain an environment where young people, are able to bring out the best in themselves in ways and means that honor diversity. Because me spoke about Christianity, we haven't spoken about Islam. And we've seen, in recent times, some news items about, for instance, the Wesley girls issue of not allowing the ladies to express their faith, which I felt was unfair. But anyways, so at the end of the day, as a country, we need to really establish at the various levels what our priorities are and communicate balance in a way that the young people, the learners that are coming up would understand that, yes, in my formative years, certain things are allowed. Look, I'm a Christian and I work. It doesn't mean that I spend the whole day, praying and reading the Bible. I know when to pray, when to read my Bible, and I know when to do my work and actually earn my money, and make the impacts that I want to make. So,
Samson, let me hold you on that thought. I'm glad you brought up the issue of Wesley girls and the Muslim students. We actually have an Islamic cleric on the line, Sheikh Ofosuhene. He's joining us via phone. Sheikh, good evening. Many thanks for joining us.
Very good evening. May Almighty God bless you and bless everybody who's listening to you.
Very well. Bless you too. Now, we're asking, do you think that we need to abolish religious activities from our schools, since some people are saying that it's becoming a distraction? Now, some of your youth are even having issues, like we saw case in point in the Wesley Girls Senior High School, where they were being disallowed from praying because the school thought it would be a problem, it would be distractive to their academic work. Now, what's your take on this?
We thank God. Well, to take it completely, it's not right. But you have to be moderate. We are not against, because I believe after learning, education, if you have anywhere and you have no morals, religion teaches us morals, and it tells us that we should believe in the Almighty God, and the end of the case is doing righteousness. I mean, you have to practice things that are good. You have to be morally sound, and in everything you have to be. We say you have to be transparent in everything you do, and you have to have at the back of your mind that whatever you do in this world, you're going to account for it on the day of judgment. That's what Islam says, and I believe Christianity also aspires to that. So we are not saying you need tolerance. When we say tolerance, it doesn't mean you even agree with the person. But you allow, as our constitution says, that we can practice our religion and we have no differences. You don't subject something or deny someone practicing his religion. But I don't accept the saying that religious teaching should be taken away from our schools.
Academic
No.
work.
Actually, as it goes on that way, and we are putting that into the minds of the people and the students as they are growing, then they separate themselves from the religious teachings. It's not, money is good, but it's not everything. You see, if you have billions of CDs or dollars and you don't have character, and what people are trying to forget it. If you don't believe that there is God and there is judgment, you can do anything. You won't care. It is minority that may be free, as they call themselves, free thinkers, and they will not indulge in evil doing. Or they don't believe there's something anyway. Either what you're doing, it will be no account. You won't account for anything. You won't take anything serious. Are you getting me?
Right.
So I believe religion cannot be separated. But what we are saying, like I said, they mentioned the Wesley girls. Well, I spoke a lot on radio, television about it, and I said that in Africa, our forefathers were tolerant. That is how they brought us out. Even when we say, we as individuals was a Muslim, and a Christian would say that, we would normally say our forefathers were, we can say that were traditionists, and even we go on saying they were idol worshippers. Well, that is not an insult. They believe in the forefathers. They claim they have ancestral gods. We don't believe in them, but those people, they were tolerant enough. And I was citing some example. You go to my hometown, and we had our Chima's god. That is called Pechiege. That was where it was stationed. Of recently taken to TV. That's what I learned. But when they are celebrating Ohun, which is part and parcel of the festival, their festivals, and the things that they claim that the gods directed them. You are at you have the Presbyterian enclave, and they will tell you if you are there, you call the school, that is where the church people are. You can pound your food, but the whole town they will not allow it. The Muslim enclave, where we normally call Zongo, where Muslims are, they allow you to pound your food because they know you are a Muslim and you don't believe in what they are doing. So they won't even coerce you, they won't force you. But we Christians and Muslims that are coming today, if the Quran says, La ikra fi din, the Quran says there's no compulsion in religion. Is that the right thing is we have explained everything to you in the books. If you read, you listen, and you want, you choose the choice. If you don't want to live your life and die, and God will deal with you. But here's the case, religious people are not so tolerant, especially both the Christian and the Muslim wants to use for that it is ours. If you are teaching Christianity there, if Muslims want to pray and they want to do what they are doing there, that is like the fasting, which has no problem with the activities of the school. Why shouldn't we allow? It is the fanatism that we can take away. But teaching, what is Islam teaching? It teaches you moral. Islam teaches you moral, righteous doing. And I'm saying this before I will end it. You see, America and Europe, and even I have a friend who went to Japan, and they will tell you that they are honest. They won't tell you lies. They don't do malpractice a lot. It's like you leave your pet somewhere, somebody will just take it, give it to a police, send it to police station. But here, we are not teaching our people seriously. Then all those grades, it's not that they were free thinkers. They have religious doctrines. Europe became Europe when they were strong Christians, and they were taught well about the Christian life and how they should be honest. That is why they practice ideas of risk and that they are changing. But see, when you bring a child out with a special character, he goes out with it, and even if he says he doesn't believe in it, those good things that he sees that can help the world, they will mention it. And in Germany, in every voice, that's German and co. You go back to German, President come from German, and people tell you some Germans, they have character. It's not that, it is not by accident. It is the bringing up and go to Arab nation where they practice Islam well, somebody won't want to steal your money. You do that make clear. They won't do things that will destroy the nation. They won't be doing a lot of malpractices. So we cannot reject religion, but we should be moderate in everything that we do. And we have to look at others and accept them as they are. And if we have anything, I'm somebody who propagates. I don't I'm not against a Christian preaching his religion. I am not against a Muslim preaching his religion.
Very well.
If you are preaching, you have to.
Well, I'll come back to you. Kindly hold on. I want to come back in studio because you mentioned the point about morality. Now, Reverend, let me come to you. Do you think that do you necessarily have to be religious to be morally upright?
Okay. So yes and no.
Okay.
Now, yes, because various religious organizations have shown in the past, I mean historically, that religion continues to be a robust processor of human conscience.
Okay.
You can't challenge it. If you look at sacred texts like the Bible, like the Quran, like those in Hinduism, you will see that these sacred texts are essentially focusing on censoring the human condition, the human attitudes, human emotions, human behaviors, and shaping it so that it can influence how people relate and behave. So that's a point that is incontestable, and that's the yes.
Okay.
That religion is a robust processor of human morality and a shaper of human conscience. That one nobody can contend with us. But the other part is in the no. Let me explain that. So for years now I've been teaching the psychology of religion. Now, so most of the time you are not going to find a very fine link between what people profess and what they do.
Okay.
There's a certain disconnect. So somebody will say, I'm Christian and I believe in integrity, I don't have to steal. All right. But our data shows that during examination, if they found somebody stealing and copying, those who are religious are more likely
to be part of
it. They want to copy. And when you ask them, oh, well, he's doing it, me too, I want to do it. And so we found that disconnect. Now what that means is that to be able to get people to really apply themselves to what they profess goes just beyond, mental assent. That, oh, I believe in Jesus Christ, I'm a Muslim, and so I believe in this. It goes just beyond that. It is the person making sure he or she applies herself or himself to exactly what he or she professes. Now, see, that disconnect that you feel as a Christian if you stole is what we call virtuous struggle. A virtuous struggle is that you are doing your best to live virtuous life.
Okay.
You want to do the best thing. You want your profession to be correlated with your actions. And yet there is always that disconnect. So I tell people, when they say, oh, he's a Christian, but he did this. Don't forget, he's a human being. And that challenge is with them, is with pastors, is with sheikhs, is with every religion. They're also human beings.
Okay.
But that's why they go to the mosque, they go to church, they go to the sacred spaces to seek strength, to be able to, bridge this gap between what they profess and what they do. So I am often bothered at when people say, oh, but he's a Christian. Of course, it's a problem if somebody claims to be a religious person and yet engage in very bad behavior. Then, of course, you are maligning the cause of your own faith. But otherwise, as long as they are human beings who are liable to errors and moral failures and whatnot, there are problems in there. So I don't really trust people so much and to see them as people who will not make mistakes. I don't do that.
Okay.
They will make mistakes. But it is our job as clerics to make sure that we keep on teaching them. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian pastor. He says, teaching them to obey my commands. So you need to teach them. Okay. They will falter a couple of times, but you keep teaching.
Okay. So in light of you establishing that we're infallible, or we're fallible, rather, is it that we're putting too much pressure and expectation on people we consider Christian, for which reason we are watching their every step and say, if you do this, aha, I caught you. So you're not
that's
really
what we call
upright.
That's what we call the fishbowl syndrome, or what we call paragonic crisis. Okay. When you say you're a paragon, See, every believer is seen as, if you like, a perfect model of morality. That's what we are looking at. That's what we want to see.
Yeah.
When I come in and I say, and you tell me you're a Christian, I'm expecting a certain level of action and behaviors from you. I don't want to hear that you did A, you did B, something that is completely untoward to your faith. I want to see that, okay, she doesn't tell lies, blah, 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 and stuff like that. The problem with all of us is that there is this epidemic of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, the viewers. When I say the epidemic of hypocrisy, sometimes we blow the mistakes people make out of proportion. And he's a Christian, he's told a lie. And he's a Muslim, he's done this. Yes, I don't like Christians to do that. In fact, the Bible tells me that ye are the salt of the earth, and you are the light of the world. So if you are a salt and you engage in behaviors that rather, contradict your saltiness, or you are a light and you are engaging in darkened, actions, then of course a problem. But the point is this, that the fallibility of human beings will never leave us until, from a Christian theological perspective, until we are fully close to redemption. But that also doesn't mean that when people are making, committing errors and blunders and moral blunders, we should say, oh, because they are Christians. No, that's not the point I'm making. Okay. The point I'm making is that when people are committing all kinds of moral blunders, we should call their attention to their own confessions that you are a believer. But not just only calling their attention, but continue to work on them. So let's stop being hypocritical and being too surprised. And this is very common in the West and here. When somebody commits a mistake and he says, oh, I have to resign. And I hear people say, he has resigned because he felt that what he did was wrong. That's okay. But the point is this. Those who are calling for head should roll. What does the Bible say? It says, remove the mote in your own eyes before you attempt to do that in that of your friend's eye. In other words, you are not better than the person you are accusing. So we have to be careful. But let me end on this note. That sometimes too, there are some Christians who say, oh, I'm a human being, I'm weak. Some religious persons, by all means, once I'm washed, I'll fall into that. You have to stop talking like that. You have to understand that. Once you become an example, people have the right to judge you. Because you said that your profession should match with your actions. So if you're a Christian, behave as a Christian. If you're a Muslim, behave as a Muslim. If you're a religious person, behave as a religious person. Don't go and hide and say, well, I'm weak, and the Bible says that, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Flesh is weak.
You don't have to do that.
Very well. Very well. Now, Nehemiah, I want to come back to you and ask you a very important question, but let me wrap up with Sheikh Ofosuyini. Sheikh, you made the point about how we need to check the fanaticism in our schools instead of, say, we want to eradicate or get rid of religious activities in our school. Now, how do we begin to even check that?
Yeah, because, I believe, even like Christianity, it won't tell you to compare somebody. And we are all in Ghana. The Constitution tells us straightforward that we should be religious tolerant. We should tolerate one another. And so if we are in that, I was born a Muslim, and I come from Achimarina, I say that. And I went to Presbyterian primary school, that was basic education, where I started. And you have the right to do, when it's the time for Muslims to even celebrate it special or you other. There's to allow Muslims to go. And when we come to school, everything that we need, if we are praying, we pray. We all pray together, and we do things. But we were not coerced to do anything that goes against our religion. We fast. I started fasting when I was in class 2. And I did that throughout. No teacher will tell you. And they will even praise you for doing that. Christian pastors, they are pastors who were living, they see you a young man fasting. They will tell you, oh, that's beautiful. You track with God. And they always tell you things about God. And they teach you what is right. So it is, like I said, fanaticism. That is, sometimes everybody somebody wants everybody to be a Christian, or somebody wants everybody to be a Muslim.
Right.
Forcefully, not by conviction. You have to convince the person. If you are able to convince him that this and that person accepts that, then that is that person will probably see. But you can't coerce, you can't force. I don't believe that should be allowed, and I don't believe even pastors believe in that. And Muslims, like you said, the books we are reading should guide us. That is my principle. The Quran says we should live a righteous life, and we should be tolerant. It is God that we claim, we worship, which I believe is a true God. He's giving a commandment. You read Quran chapter 10, verse next, I say that if I God so good, he said, I'll make all mankind to worship me without any objection. But I have given them a choice. That the ones, whatever they want, they do. But I will take them. That doesn't mean you don't preach them. Preach them. Speak to them. Tell them. Say, are you to force men before they worship me? He said, no. So it is Quranic and it is biblical. These are okay me preaching. They were not coercing anybody to do. Some people don't get the teachings very well. First of all, but they were rather attacked by the enemies. They were not allowed to practice their religion. That is where and when they were compared to defend themselves. So I believe we should be teaching. Let me tell you this point before I end. You see, there could be some Muslims that will be afraid of a Christian teaching, and also there are some Christians who will be afraid of a Muslim teaching, preaching, and they even want to say that you shouldn't preach. I don't believe in that. They should preach. If it is convincing, then people buy it into that. And we all have to put our case at open. We have to be careful. We believe in one God. That's the Muslim principle. Believe in all the prophets. Come on, talking. If people are convinced, they follow. If they don't, the day of judgment.
Very well, Sheikh. Thank you very much for speaking to us. I'm grateful for your time. Sheikh Ayub Ofosuhene is an Islamic cleric. Now, Niyama, let me come to you. Now, I know you said even if you are asked 1,000 times, you won't change your stance. But I want to find out from you, in a world that is becoming increasingly sensitive about discriminating against certain people or marginalizing people by certain actions that we take, don't you think we should rethink creating a neutral space in our educational setup, so children know that, okay, if I come to school, I won't be forced to do this, and so I'm strictly coming to come and study. We can take a case in point, the Wesley Girls one. We can also take the issue of Achimota School and the Rastafarians, where they were being denied access to education simply because of their faith. Don't you think we should be paying attention to that and be more sensitive to some of these things?
Thank you very much. My position is very simple and clear. I said that if you have mission-based schools and you have faith-based schools, these schools were set by a certain ethos, on a certain foundation. And therefore, we should not do anything to take away that foundation upon which the school was built on. So that if I'm aspiring to any school, for instance, which is strongly religious based, and I've narrowed my discussion to Christianity, that's because that's where I can discuss conveniently, because I know and I practice it. Let us not do anything to change that. So that you say, for instance, that I'm a Christian. Okay. I've devoted so much money in my life to build a school on the foundation of Christian principles. And then we say secularization, everything has changed. And therefore, that Christian foundation upon which I build my school be neutralized, so that students of the school are not allowed to practice the Christianity. That's what I don't stand for. I mean, our constitution is very clear that admission to educational institutions are not based on what? Religion, race, gender, etc. So in as much as people of different religious persuasions will be allowed entry into all schools on the principle of the constitution, that should not take away the practice of the foundation of the school. That is all what I'm saying. Right. And that should supersede all others, because that is what the school was built for. But if you are, for example, government e-blocks, which government have built, The government knows it is not religious based, and therefore it says, okay, it is free for all, everybody can do anything they want. We'll give space to Christianity, give space to all other religious faith. I don't have any problem about it, because I am what do you call it? Posterity conscious. I am conscious of the things that we do today that may be weighted tomorrow by changes of society. The societies are always changed. Even in the days of the Old Testament and the New Testament, we have different sorts of societies. But certain groups stood firm to say that this is what we believe and this is what must be maintained. And even then, in those days, those things were maintained. So they can still be maintained.
Very well.
Then, yes, allow everybody into the school, but let's not the foundation upon which the school was established be taken away. Right. That is my only position.
Very well.
And for that reason, I think that Christianity in Christian-based schools must continue to be practiced.
Very well. Mr. Jabesi, how do we address the issue of finding balance and leadership, making clear to students that this is the core reason for which you are here in the first place and that they need to pursue the academic work whilst practicing whatever religion that they subscribe to? Finding the right balance and make sure that at the end of the day they make their grades while, you know, earning whatever benefits they do from the foundations and principles of whether it being Christianity or being Muslim. How do we do that?
Well, thank you very much. I think that is where leadership comes in, educational leadership. I think every proprietor, every headmaster has a responsibility to educate these kids, make sure they pass their examinations, they move forward, they give them options for life. And that is what we do as proprietors and headmasters of schools. And in that process, certainly, as I said, there are other things that are important as we develop the young person. Spirituality is important. Co-curricular activities are important, like sports, they are important. But then, in you designing your academic calendar, in you designing the structure of your school, it is important that the students are well educated to understand what is important. And they are pushed and directed to choose academics in everything they do and spend as little as a time on the other things. For instance, in my school, we have a policy that a student cannot be a member of more than 2 clubs.
Okay.
You can be a member of, say, a football team, and maybe you can be in the choir. Okay. You can be a member of more than that. Okay. The idea is there are students who would like to come to your school and spend all their time in co-curricular activities as opposed to the core reason why they are in school. Okay. So with these policies, it ensures that students will be focused on what is important. But let me add this quickly as we expand this discussion. I've found out that many people who really talk about removing religion from schools, from education, are not really interested in only removing religion from schools. They are really interested in removing religion from our society altogether.
Really?
Look,
also?
Yes, that is the reality. Because why are we not talking about removing sports and co-curricular activities from schools? Why are we talking about only religion? It's because most people actually have an agenda when they talk about these things. There's a book that I'll recommend, The Culture of Disbelief by Professor Stephen Carter. He argued that when you take religion from schools or from society altogether, you are not living a vacuum. When we take religion out of schools, we are not living a vacuum. We are actually putting something else back in there, which is secularization. And in its general definition, it means people making decisions based on what pleases them. Taking religion from any decision making, taking religion from any policy making, and allowing people to do whatever pleases them. Well, in this crazy world that we have, is that a message you want to be sending our little children? That you can go to school and do whatever you like and whatever pleases you? Many jurisdictions, especially the Western jurisdictions, have tried this and it has failed big time. We have kids who go to school with guns to shoot one another because they say you can't be talk about Jesus, you can't talk about Christ, you can't talk about any form of religion in schools. Even teachers cannot bring Bibles to school because it will offend somebody else. And that's the direction we will be heading to if we start talking about taking religion out of our schools. And as a country that over 80% or so believes in some form of religion, I think we have to be careful about this narrative that is being pushed nowadays. Religion is important because as a country, we believe in it. And I think in our schools, we can find the right balance to ensure that kids are still focused on academics, at the same time, develop that spirituality, that God factor that will help them in life.
Very well. Samson, let me get your final comment on finding balance. I know you've been all over Africa, if not beyond, working in various capacities in educational setup. So let me get your very seasoned perspective on how we can strike the right balance.
I just want to say that, look, I agree with everything that has been shared so far. Okay. And we need to also establish that as a human being, there are three sides to us. Our spirituality, a human being is composed of the body, the soul, and the spirit. Mm-hmm. And for us to be able to find balance, we need to give equal attention or strive to give equal attention to all these three aspects of our life. And spirituality or religion also helps us to find our purpose. There are a lot of young people today who don't know their purpose. There are a lot of people in the world today who don't know their purpose. And so to some extent, we cannot separate religion from education. We need to establish that. Okay. However, it is also important for us to create an allowance, okay, for us to be able to express diversity and the uniqueness of our religions, and also allow people to tap into their creativity, because at the end of the day, the truth is we need to move forward as a country. We need to, make sure that our graduates are trained, they have the skills they need to work. We need to ensure that we are on the right path for socioeconomic growth. And for us to do this, we need to be able to find balance. Whilst finding balance, we need to also allow people to be able to express. So in the case of Wesley Girls, like we've made reference, and at Chimota, we need to speak up against such, inequity within our educational system and what some of the barriers to access. So that at the end of the day, when we are, fully, within the system and there's equal opportunity for everyone to express their faith, we are able to allow young people to be creative, to be innovative, to come up with the ideas they need, or the ideas they have, and support them, and as well encourage them to be able to become morally upright citizens and active citizens. I just want to add that another thing we need to also consider when we are inducting, teachers into schools and the staff of, the school, we need to find a way to support them. Joseph spoke about leadership. And I would say, let us not focus on the head teachers alone. Let us not focus on the principals alone. Let us focus on everybody who has a role to play within the education system. Provide them the support to be able to nurture the young ones so that they can find balance for their future. Thank you.
Samson, I'm grateful for your time. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you. I'll wrap up with Reverend in studio. Reverend, from your religious and academic point of view, we need to find a balance that's been established. How do we do that?
Maybe three key things. Okay. Number one is for our school authorities to know the clear role of religion in the lives of the kids. I'm talking about from primary school to the university. Religion plays a role, but what is this role? So you know exactly why they are in school. Like we said, it shapes their perspective, it influences their morality, is a robust processor, and direct their conscience, for example. So if we know that this is why we should allow them to participate in religious activities in schools, we are clear on that. Number two, we should be able to set limits. Look, I'm a psychologist. And one of the things that I know about human behavior, that any behavior uncensored can just break bounds. You need to set limitations. A student cannot be part of so many Christian organizations. I mean, what is it? Jesus Christ. Oh, I mean, come on. Good point there. So let's set limits. And I'm happy about what my other colleague said. Yeah. In some schools, there are clear limits. I attended a Presbyterian school. I'm very disciplined. I mean, you can't just do anything at all. Extremely disciplined. And so let's set the rules. Primary school, JHS, secondary school, let's set the rules. The third point should go to those who are in the universities. Okay. If you are an adult, 18, 19, 22, or early adult in a university, why would you want to spend all your time in the church? I mean, you have to understand that your faith also requires that you are disciplined and you allow time to apportion specific time to other things and get them done. A false balance, the Bible says, is an abomination. So why are you in the chapel the whole day? This is your revision week. Make the time. You have spent all the time in praying. That's okay. You spend all the time reading the Bible and various chapters. That's okay. Use the next 2 weeks and spend time on your books. Studying. That is also godly.
Reverend, I'm grateful for your time. Thank you very much for coming. I think the point has been pretty much established. It takes balance and discipline to know when to do what at what time. So we can't exactly blame religion as being the main cause for which reason students aren't studying enough in schools. But that's all we have time for tonight's edition of Opposing Views. We'll be back on Thursday. My name is Marie-France Fojo, but I want to say thank you to our guest, Reverend Professor Joseph Osafo. He's a lecturer at the University of Ghana. He's also a Reverend Minister. Also Joseph Jamesi, General Secretary for CHOPS. Sheikh Ayub Ofosuhene, an Islamic cleric. He joined us via phone. Niama Adi, who's an educationist, and Samson Kofi Adote, who's a grassroots education advocate. We'll see you on Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your day.
It's been a great first year, from the engaging shows that are now part of your daily routine.
This homecoming era has never been this fascinating.
Now it's time we took things up a notch. To the excitement on our social media timelines.